No masters, no slaves, no rulers, no state, no taxes, no cage. To see it is to leave it.
Voluntaryist Academy is an educational platform dedicated to the principles of non-aggression, self-ownership, and the ethical philosophy of voluntarism. Here, we reject the mythology of political authority and embrace the timeless truth that all human interaction should be grounded in consent and moral integrity. Through rigorous study, in-depth courses, and accessible materials, Voluntaryist Academy equips individuals with the tools to critically examine the foundations of coercive systems and to replace them with voluntary, peaceful alternatives rooted in natural law. Whether you are new to these ideas or looking to deepen your understanding, Voluntaryist Academy provides a structured path to intellectual freedom, ethical consistency, and personal sovereignty. Welcome, explore the curriculum, challenge false assumptions, learn to live free. I'm James Cordiner, and I just ran down my stairs to get here. It was just a couple minutes late this time, but anyways, you can forgive me for that. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight we'll be covering Chapter 7 of The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. First, I want to ask you all to go over to voluntaryistacademy.com, link in the show notes, sign up to the newsletter in case this YouTube channel ever gets taken offline or gets nuked. You can keep up with me at the newsletter. You can also become a sponsor. For $3 a month, you can help this operation keep going and growing. If a monthly subscription isn't your deal, if you don't want to support this in a monetary sense, just like and subscribe and do all that stuff. You're a click away from helping this information reach more people. That's really what this is all about in the long run anyways. But in the short term, things like equipment and websites, that stuff costs money, and I don't know. I guess I'm just extending my hand and saying, consider helping out. Thank you very much for that. You can also contact me over here at voluntaryistacademy.com. Write in. Make like a short message. Write in. Tell me what's on your mind. And maybe I'll give you a shout out on the show if you do that, if I see one of your emails. You can also go to the resources page and download PDFs of a lot of the material, including tonight's book that we cover on this channel, that I've covered in the past and hope to cover in the future. Okay, so, and when you go over to the support page at voluntaryistacademy.com/donate, there's all sorts of different ways that you can choose to do that. Go over to the onegreatworknetwork.com, onegreatworknetwork.com, and get your fill of over 80 content creators that are in this space of helping educate about natural law, anarchism, voluntarism, freedom, liberty, the occult, and everything in between. Mark Passio set this up a long time ago. Go over there and check it out. Okay, so we'll go back here. See this big stack of books behind me right here? We're going to be talking about these books a lot later, okay? I plan on getting into something after the presentation. So last week I promised that there would be an epic conclusion to this series, and as I was making the slides, I realized I don't think I want to go through 170 slides in one night. So we're going to be finishing it up in, not tonight, maybe not next week, but by the end of March, this will be over and we'll be moving on to something else. Okay. I think that does it for the upfront. How are we doing on the stream? Good. Great. grand. Let's go. Chapter 7, Economics. Economics is the study of the trade of work. The principles of money are scientific, and as with all truths, simple and easy to understand. Government institutions have created artificial ideas such as employee, corporation, and dollar to enable them to control your labor. Their objective is to confuse you and make money complex so that they can more easily take it from you. Work. Everything you do to better your life requires work. It may be as simple as planting a seed and tending the soil so that it will grow to be your food. It may be washing the dishes so that you can eat from a clean plate. It may be climbing a hill so that you can slide down. You do everything that you do to benefit yourself and those you love. Trade. You may not be good at building some of the things you want. You may not want to plant your own food. Trade allows you to do different kinds of work, but to give that work to others in exchange for work they provide you. If you cannot build an integrated circuit, but can operate on a tumor, then a trade can help two people, a doctor and an engineer. Trades can be between 2, 3, or hundreds of people, but at the end of the day, it is as simple as trading your work for someone else's work. You get to do what you are best at, but get to receive what others are best at. Savings and debt. Savings and debt allow people to perform trades without the restriction of time. When you work today and redeem the traded work later, it is called savings. When you redeem today and perform the traded work later, it is called debt. Both principles enable you to control your labor without being subject to time. Money. Money is the record of all savings and debt transactions. All it does is record what you owe or what is owed to you. It can be carried symbolically as paper or coin, or as a line item on accounting books. After you have performed some of your work in trade, you receive money to record the value of that work. Your trade of work can be between any number of people and all redeemed at different times. The principle of money greatly enables people and frees them to work and receive the benefits on their own schedules. Economic control. There are people who wish to use your work for their own purposes without providing anything in return. The objective of economic control is to control as much of your labor as possible. Tax. There is an extra party to most economic trades that take place on Earth. They offer no benefit to either party, and they do not allow you to choose whether or not to include them in the trade. A tax is when someone takes money that does not belong to them. Taxes are law and not principle, because they destroy freedom and must be enforced. Some of the people who tax are common thieves, while others are powerful governments. All right, extortion. The corruption of economics is called extortion. When you labor, but someone else redeems your work without your permission, it is tax. To tax someone is to steal from them a portion of their work, or all of it. Under taxation, you work but gain nothing in return. Even when the claim is made that the money will be spent for your benefit, you cannot choose what your work will buy. Under taxation, the extortionist is the master and you are the slave. What amount of time they steal from you is irrelevant. A slave for an hour or a slave for a lifetime is still a slave. Failure to pay is penalized by imprisonment or death. Taxation comes in many forms. The simplest is to steal your money without you ever realizing it. We call this theft, and it is practiced by common criminals. The more popular and vastly more profitable form of taxation is to take a portion of your work when you produce it, when you trade it, and when you save it. This is the form which is practiced by governments and mafias. There is another form that is incredibly devious and difficult for people to see. The restriction of behaviors to compel you to do something that authority wants is taxation. Using this method, they never have to bother with money. They simply compel you to do their bidding directly. This form of taxation is called by many, many names. Some of them are price controls, regulation, bureaucracy, red tape, paperwork, formalities, oversight, Social Security, public works, and the public good. Effective taxation is a function of time. A common thief will steal as much money from you today as possible. Tomorrow you will be destitute and have nothing left for him to take. Furthermore, you will run far away or find a method of protecting yourself in the future. Governments are far more advanced. They allow you to keep a portion of your work for yourself, enough so that you will not run away or revolt, but instead continue working where they can take from you again tomorrow. Taxation constantly fluctuates as governments test whether or not they can get more from their subjects. If people slow down or quit working, then taxes are too high. Culture is manipulated to keep up with increasing taxes to teach people the nobility of government and slavery. Because taxation is a function of time, they can pirate from you not just huge percentages of your money today, and not just for the rest of your life, but all possibility of interest on your labors. Government taxation is the single most effective extortion racket that has ever existed. The evil genius comes with the culture. Most citizens consider it honorable to pay their masters. Earn, trade, save. Taxation is obfuscated in every area of your life. The easiest to see is when they take your money as you earn it. Income tax, regulations, and governmental restrictions allow the extortionist to pirate labor before you ever get to put it to your use. You serve them. They leave you the scraps, whatever the percentage of your liberty or labors they allow. Extortionists take a further percentage every time you trade your labor, called sales tax, use tax, gas tax, or any such sundry names. You have less than you produced because they already took huge percentages from you, and now as you go to redeem your labor for food, shelter, better health, or comforts, they take even more. This is not all, because they also restrict your choices in redemption. They tell you what is legal to buy, how much, and sometimes at what price. Once earned and spent or saved, your money and property are still not safe. Property taxes and annual licensing fees confiscate a further percentage of your work as a privilege for ownership of your own money. You bought a house and you bought a car, but in reality, you are just renting them from the government. Try not paying the taxes and fees if you don't believe that. You will shortly be evicted. All of this is designed to keep you working tomorrow on the upkeep of your masters, lest you retire too early. Your money is not safe in savings either. All governments control their forms of money, such as the US dollar, and it is illegal to trade using any other currency. Inflation is engineered by governments to erode your savings over time as they spend your money through government deficits. Inflation also ensures that as your savings are eaten away, you will be forced to keep working, wherein they can repeat the cycle of taxation. Remember that the reason you work is to benefit yourself and those you love. Yet because they are more powerful than you, many people have managed to force you to work for their benefit. This is economic control. This is the purpose of government. Governments are predatory institutions. Economic culture. Make no mistake, you are a slave and government is your master. The brilliance of your masters, as opposed to conventional slavery, is that they allow you to believe that you earn what you work for and that you own what you buy. It keeps you complacent and agreeable. Taxation is a function of time. They will take just as much today as keeps you laboring in their behalf tomorrow. Cultural ideas like public servant, public works, public good, public protection, and social security illustrate their deviousness. They have actually convinced people that having their money stolen under threat of death is something to be desired. Remember, it is all for your own good. Constructs such as employee, job, corporation, and legal tender are rackets engineered by highly skilled extortionists to restrict behaviors and confiscate wealth. An employee is a person who performs work and trade for money. This is no different from a contractor, a non-employee, or a garage sale. You perform work in exchange for someone else's work. You create wealth to feed your family and to benefit your life. Employees, however, are constructs of governments to restrict economic behavior. What's the difference between an employee and a person who only performs some work? If you gather together the thousands of pages of laws, you'll get the idea of who benefits from the artificial ideas of employee and corporation. Governments play employees and corporations off each other to divert anger over the loss of freedom from its proper target, the extortionist. Corporations are constructs invented to restrict the collective behaviors of people. If one person can work on a task, it is clear that many can group together to accomplish more complex tasks. Normally, this would just be you and me agreeing to do something together for the benefit of someone else in exchange for money. Corporations are, quote, creatures of the state, end quote, as governments call them, created to abstract the average person from the simple truth of people conducting trade. If government acknowledged the mammoth restrictions they put upon you, which tell you where you can and cannot trade, what you can and cannot trade, how you can and cannot trade, and at what price you can and cannot trade, they would have an instant revolt. Corporations allow them to create a demon to hide their own lusts for power and wealth. Corporations today attract the wrath of people as polluters, greedy conglomerates, and usury employers, despite the truth that a corporation is just you and I trading work. All of this is designed to hide the most advanced extortion racket in history. Cartels and monopolies. A corporate monopoly is hailed as evil because it destroys consumer choice. Governments tell us that monopolies force you to purchase a given product at a given price. The truth is that there is no force. You have at least two alternate choices. First, don't buy the product at all. Second, start your own group to manufacture the product. Given the supposed evil of a monopoly, what solution do governments offer? Government control. Government is the only true monopoly. You cannot choose whether or not to buy their quote-unquote services. Opting out is called treason and tax evasion, and authority will come to your door with guns. They will imprison or kill you. Government is the only true monopoly, and their monopoly is a monopoly of violence. These are the people that we are taught to trust with authority over our goods and services. Demonizing corporations as monopolistic follows the pattern of tyranny precisely. Fabricate an enemy and seize control. A cartel is when the forces in an economy band together to preclude anyone else from entering a market. As with a monopoly, this is only possible with government. Only government has the weapons and police to stop you from selling a product or offering a service. There are cartels large and small all around the world. They normally focus on an industry within a country. For example, a government agency that controls the sale of drugs and healthcare operates a cartel. When licensing, government applications and fees become the barrier to entry in a market. Government effectively keeps the existing market in place and keeps you out. If you try to operate in freedom outside the law, you will be jailed or killed. Many big businesses love cartels because government becomes their partner in keeping competition away. The laws and regulations that people are taught to agree to do not hurt big business. Big business are the only ones who can afford the cost of regulation. Some people think that they are sticking it to the big business when they enact tough laws, but they are actually pawns of culture, and they themselves are the ones who are hurt. Regulation keeps big business big and bankrupts everyone else. This is the nature of a government cartel. There are no other cartels. Choice. Taxation is championed by culture as the means of building societal needs, but social needs can never be met by force. A person who does not purchase a thing by choice can never gain benefit by being forced to pay for it. Welfare and the public good cannot be served by extortion. Only the owner of work can rightfully decide where that work is redeemed. All else is thievery. All claims of need and public good that are not met by free will are the lies of culture. An important principle to understand is that evil wants power over you. Money is only a representation of work, and as long as evil people can compel you to work on their behalf, they don't need to possess money to control you. This principle is exercised in welfare and socialist states. Money confiscation by politicians is largely not spent directly on themselves. However, they still enjoy the taste of power over you by taking and spending that which they did not earn. It is not money that is evil, but slavery. Frequently, governments will strengthen their culture grip over people by spending extorted money in targeted ways. Just as mafia dons and drug lords are known to spend on social projects for the benefit of the poor, governments use money to fabricate enemies and impersonate righteousness. They spend lavishly with other people's money on public works and welfare. In so doing, they pretend to be the saviors of the people, while condemning the rich, socialism, or the Jews, Nazis, or freedom itself, terrorists. The pattern plays out in 1,000 ways, and the artificial enemies are always different, but the result is always the same. Governments do not always spend money on themselves, but they always increase their power. Remember that money is only a representation of power. Its only value is in its ability to convince others to work on your behalf. Money's value can be widely fluctuated depending upon how you view it at any given moment. Those in authority over you know very well that money can have vastly more value than the numbers printed on the front when you use it as a weapon against one group to benefit another. They claim to exercise authority with no gain for themselves. This is a great lie of evil, used liberally in democracies. It is a debt paid by slaves to be collected by authority in loyalty and allegiance. For all who wish to feed the poor of the world, there is only one solution: end authority. Freedom solves the world's ills. The reason the earth has widespread poverty is simply because people are not free to pursue prosperity. A free people are a prosperous people. Government debt. Government debt is money spent by governments before they confiscate it. Such debt has little meaning, since the evil is found in the confiscation and not the timing. However, given the culture of democracies, people are taught the nobility of nations and the loyalty of being a taxpayer. Governments know that they can spend whatever they want today and obligate you to pay for it tomorrow. The nature of national cultures is such that even when the threshold of extortion is less than government spending, by the time the debt comes due, cultures convince people that it is their debt. In this fashion, they raise the threshold of extortion. People are less likely to revolt or quit working when they are taught that it is their nation, their debt, and their moral obligation to pay. Bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is a word used to describe the requirements of complying with government regulations. In order to make sure that you are obeying the countless laws governments subject you to, you must also subject yourself to the enforcement of those laws. Innocent and necessary in the eyes of culture, the truth is that bureaucracy is the patent nature of slavery. Evil seeks control over you, to destroy your liberty, to destroy your spirit. The more you must do by force, the less freedom you have, and the stronger evil is. Every culture teaches the nobility of law enforcement. They teach that law enforcement prevents murders and rape. While it is entirely possible that they do on occasion stop violence, the vast majority of modern law enforcement is designed only to destroy liberty and extort wealth. Every visit to a motor vehicle's bureaucracy, every tax form, every time you are pulled over, every ordinance you comply with at home or on the job is law enforcement in action. The culture of law enforcement is one of protection. Their protection exists only to the extent necessary to convince you to submit to everything else they demand of you. The law teaches that you must comply with reams of bureaucracy and enforcement in order to protect other people from you. You are taught that you must comply with extensive enforcement because you cannot be trusted to live peaceably. While culture teaches that the nature of criminality is murder, rape, and theft, almost none of the enforcement of law has anything to do with such things. The reason is obvious. You are not evil. You do not do such heinous things. There is very little reason to believe that those around you are any less moral than you. And yet, somehow, to support that basic definition of crime, millions are employed as agents of law. They spend all their time making sure you comply with the facets and iotas of every regulation they can devise. The amount of extortion necessary to support vast bureaucracies is almost unfathomable. The amount of life culled from supposedly free peoples in obeying law is shocking. Yet evil has what it wants: enormous control, dramatically diminished liberty, and huge sums of your money. Building codes, environmental regulations, local planning, and on, each one justifiable in modern culture. Each one has armies to support them, each one with just one thing in common: their enforcement by law destroys freedom. If any of these goals were noble in their own right, they would not need force to accomplish them. Their true result is to raise costs through increased property tax, impact fees, licensing fees, business fees, employment taxes, on, etc., etc. Even government programs designed to cultivate seemingly noble goals, such as ownership societies, are inherently evil. They are designed to stabilize populations. What that means is that they get more people to commit to a location and a cost on long-term financing so that it is harder to escape taxation. If governments actually wanted families to own their own homes, they would simply stop charging them rent every year. Price controls. Price controls. Governments sometimes implement price controls. They dictate under force of law what price you must sell your work at. They dictate under threat of imprisonment or death how much you will produce your labor for. In government-regulated cartels like healthcare, governments pretend to reduce costs either directly through price mandate or indirectly by buying services on behalf of citizens. Using either method, they insert the tentacles of their control under the guise of protecting the poor from greedy corporations and capitalists. By forcing people to work at artificial wages, they destroy the competition of a free market. When freedom is destroyed, only the powerful can survive. Cartels are thusly forged with governments. Powerful businesses watch their weaker competition fall to bankruptcy. Government makes sure it is prohibitively expensive to enter the market with fees and licensing requirements. Businesses then can enjoy government-mandated prices with no competition. Governments can enjoy control of prices and therefore guaranteed taxes. The intent of price controls are not to keep prices down, but to keep them up. Big business loves government regulations. Regulations ensure that only the well-established and extremely well-financed can compete. People seeking to trade skills, products, or expertise are burdened by the impossible demands of government. Thusly, big business is an extension of the compulsion of government. Anti-business regulations that people are taught to support are actually good for big business. Instead of hindering them, such regulation destroys your liberty. Protectionism. Protectionism teaches that those within one nation or border should exclude others from trade under force of law. This takes place as restrictions on buying and selling products and services as well as employing people. Why should the citizens of one nation be less entitled to wages or a job than the next? Protectionism is that simple. Are those outside your border inferior humans being that they should be... I gotta repeat that one. Are those outside your border inferior human beings that they should be kept from working by force? What morality exists in the teaching that one group of people is more valuable than another because of where they were born or where they live? Freedom is about the value of people. The disparity between personal profits of people in different lands is large. In one area, a family may make hundreds of times less than those in another area. If all people have the same value, why is force employed to stop the poor from earning money at any job they are willing to perform? If the poor want to sell something to a powerful nation, and the people of that nation want to purchase it because it is sold at a lower cost, why should a government wish to hamper what benefits both peoples? Governments use force to stop items from being sold within their borders at lower costs than what those in their own nation will produce. We are taught that their reason for destroying the liberty of people is that they are protecting the industries of the land. It is not hard to see the truth in evil when government extract large percentages of money from trades. The higher the cost of the product, the higher the extracted rate tax. Protection, as always, is slavery. Education. Governments control education for the purpose of culturing employees. The objective of state education is the stabilization of the tax base. Schooling, education, and knowledge are not the same thing. One is not a natural result of the other. People grow in knowledge when they learn truth. Teaching and schooling are meaningless when students do not seek wisdom. They are likewise meaningless when that which is being taught is not wisdom. In order to learn, people must thirst for knowledge. Force and compulsion cannot accomplish this. Law does not pretend to teach people their worth or abilities of achievement. Law desires only that you learn obedience. Not only does law provide a way for students to learn the merits of social and economic obedience to authority, it enforces a near-perfect monopolization against all other teachers. Private schools and parents themselves are nearly shut out from teaching children the one lesson they need, an understanding of their own value and potential. When people understand that their minds are truly capable of anything, that they are able to learn and grow according to their dreams, they tend to make poor citizens. They question culture and oppressive authority. They reject taxation. They are stronger, more peaceful, more prosperous, and more independent. All of this is wonderful for humanity and destroys evil. And this is the last section for this chapter. Revealing truth. To see the truth is an idea. To see the truth in an idea, it is a good idea to flip it upside down. Socialism teaches that people deserve to receive the benefits of working without actually working. Flipped upside down, socialism teaches that those who work must work, not only for themselves, but for everyone else as well. As with all authority, there is no choice, no opting out. Socialism reveals forced labor. Price controls teach that people deserve to receive products and services at a proper price. Flipped upside down, price controls teach that you must work to create products at the price government says you must work for. Price controls reveal forced labor. Welfare teaches that people deserve to receive the basic necessities of life without needing to work for them. Flipped upside down, welfare teaches that those unwilling to labor for their own benefit can extract it from you. Welfare reveals forced labor. Bureaucracy teaches that people should be able to expect others to behave according to strict rules to benefit everyone. Flipped upside down, bureaucracy teaches that to keep bureaucratic employees in the money, everyone must jump through hoops and pay fees and fines. Bureaucracy reveals forced labor. Taxation teaches that people deserve to receive roads, protection, schools, and all other manner of services, even if they cannot afford them. Flipped upside down, taxation teaches that people have the right to force their neighbors to pay for services without the hassle of asking for permission. Taxation reveals forced labor. All economic control is slavery. Okay, so although it was a short reading for tonight, it's pretty dense and a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about in that material. Again, once the series is complete, I will be making a supercut of just the readings if you want to enjoy an audiobook of this for free, I guess. And you can, and I'll also probably be clipping out the end sections where I've been getting into the habit of doing these little like rants and going over some other things that have been going on in my little corner of the world and recent events and everything like that. So I kind of want to like bring up what I posted on March 12th, 2 days ago at the time of this live stream / recording. I made this post on Facebook and maybe it could be seen as controversial, but the whole purpose of this is kind of to have a shock to the system. So I'll read it out loud. Sending your children to government school is a form of abandonment. Sure, they may very well learn to enjoy it. Maybe they even thrive. If so, that's great. Honestly, I mean that. That's great if they're doing well and everything, but they will never fly higher than they could have if you kept them home and educated them yourself. The benefits do not outweigh the risks. And here are the risks. Here's my risk assessment. You risk exposing your children to many things. You risk bullying, the bullying of your kid. Maybe even your kid turns into the bully. You risk school shootings, kidnapping, which might seem like a stretch, but it has happened in the past. And if you're thinking things through, then it needs to be considered. Public shaming rituals happen in schools all the time. You risk your child being subjected to public shaming rituals by sending them there. Mental health issues. Mental health issues stem from public school all the time due to unmet needs and missed diagnostics, or diagnoses. However, I think a guy that reads a little too much might. Anyways, these things happen, and next thing you know, you might find your child on SSRIs, and not that the schools can necessarily prescribe those things, but they are part of that machine, which leads to drug abuse. Plenty of children would probably have never been exposed to drugs like psychostimulants such as Adderall or Ritalin. Maybe if they were never in school, they would have never been exposed to those things. Your child being assaulted, both sexually and or physically. These things happen quite often, both by other students and teachers, and the form of gross physical encounters and getting into fights for no reason. I mean, and next is your child being taught to be a communist. You can laugh, but it's true, and there's plenty of proof behind that. And actually, this huge stack of books behind me, that I have here behind me, in the pages of some of these books proves that point. Okay, and I'll point out those books in just a moment. Okay, so next is the dismissal of your child's rights by way of searches and seizures of their property and being surveilled. And, this kind of goes on and on. They don't have freedom of speech. And by rights here, I mean your inherent rights, which is privacy in your person and property, freedom of speech, your right to defend yourself. Now, I'm not advocating for people bringing weapons into these buildings, mind you. I'm just saying that in school, if you get into a fist fight in school, both you and the aggressor, if you find yourself on the defensive side, both you and the aggressor are going to be in trouble. They don't care. They don't even ask the question of who started it anymore. It doesn't matter to them. Everyone's getting in trouble. Sometimes you get in trouble for defending yourself. Anyways, that's your child, and you risk your child equating their value to arbitrary grades. They see this as a way of a reflection of how good of a person they are. That's a very dangerous thing, because then they don't see value in themselves that they are able to kind of, recognize in themselves and their inherent value as a human being, such as what we've been covering in the readings of The End of All Evil, where, each person has value, has infinite value just because they're alive. And this is a huge one, where their value in arbitrary grades. Like, I mean, would you want your kid to be seeking the approval of other people so that way they can feel good about themselves? Or would you want to teach them to love themselves because they are good and they don't need a letter next to their name in order to prove it? Now, this one is a little hard for people this next one is a little bit difficult for people to wrap their heads around. But your young children's nervous system being put under stress due to you leaving them with strangers. Young children do experience this, and this is part of why children at such a young age are put into these school systems, is because it conditions them to tolerate this. But it is very, very much the leading cause for this sense of abandonment. And next is your child being taught that their conscience should be ignored and that they should be listening to an authority instead. I'm not saying that the sense of right and wrong is subjective, unless you are talking about an individual person having a sense of right and wrong. But right and wrong are still objective. Even in the context of this, it's just you as an individual and your subjective sense. The sense is subjective, not the right and wrong. I hope that clears that up. Throw a comment down if you really don't understand that. Right and wrong are the objective, and your understanding of them as an individual is your, okay, so right and wrong don't change, your understanding of it does, and they are being taught that they should ignore right and wrong and just be listening to somebody else tell them what to do. Now, I do agree that, having children of my own, that it is important that you kind of impart on them the difference between right and wrong. So in some stages of life, yes, the children do they do have to listen to an adult, but that should be the parents. That's the job that we're tasked to do as the stewards of these young people. Okay. And in doing so in the proper way, you're not teaching them to ignore their conscience. You're teaching them how to explore and to how to be tapped into their conscience and to listen to it. But in public schools, they kind of do the opposite. Sit down, shut up, do the lesson, or you're going to be medicated or kicked out. We'll find a way to make you obey, whether one way or another. That's the gist. Next is a low level, although constant state of fight or flight. And that's due to the extreme amount of stress in certain parts of the year, of the school year, or every day that they might be, that they might be living through. And in a low level, constant state of fight or flight, it's damaging. Again, we can circle back, not to use that buzz phrase too flippantly, but to kind of go back to the nervous system. That's extremely damaging to their nervous system. Your child is also being taught that there is no escaping the system, that this is just how it goes. Like, this is a state-run school. Of course, the preservation mechanism, the self-preservation mechanism of the system itself is built into the public education system. So that way there's a way to make sure that it goes into the future, and that, in that satanic sense of like the self is all important, and that principle, or not principle, but that satanic state of mind, or that satanic kind of mechanism is built into the public school system to teach kids that government you must obey, that there's no escape, that there's nowhere you can go to run, there's nowhere you can go to hide. This is why homework is such a big deal. Even when you go home, you still have to think about what the school wants from you. So again, to go back to being surveilled, they surveil children in public schools these days, and they're taught that it's for their own safety because of school shootings. Now, no one wants to see such a tragedy happen. There's plenty of hubbub around the campfire of some of my social circles regarding the legitimacy of these events, but I'm going to go right ahead and just say that no one wants to see those events happen. No one wants to see a school shooting happen, but that's not a good. It's being used. The narrative is being used to instill fear into people, so they will let their freedom and their liberty go by the wayside and subject themselves to slavery, surveillance, and all sorts of horrible other things that could be brought in the future, such as facial recognition software. I mean, it's not just good enough to have a closed circuit television or, something like to that effect, but facial recognition software, biometric data of little kids being stored in a data center somewhere so they can get in and out of a school. These things are coming. So there's no escape. That's what your children are being taught when they're going into these places. And it's not always about the lesson on in the book. It's not always about the worksheet. It's about what the environment that they are exposed to is teaching them about the world. It's very important that we kind of separate the two types of lessons that I'm referring to here, because most people hear me go, that's the lesson that they're being taught. And they equate that to the history lesson or the English lesson or the math lesson. I'm talking about a life lesson. I'm talking about environment lesson, conditioning people into being obedient. This is intergenerational cultural conditioning, the culture of obedience and the culture of no escaping the system. You cannot get away. This is a big deal. And when children are taught this thing, that's what ensures that in 2 generations from now, there is a severe and more increased loss of liberty than like the likes of which we could never even imagine. You think it's bad now. Your child next. Okay. So your child in these places, now this is not as bad as it used to be, but I still am very skeptical, and I might be out over my skis on this one because my children don't go to public school. But as far as I know, these children that are going to public schools, they're being fed foods of similar quality to that of prisoners in incarcerated people in jails and prisons all over the country. There are the companies that the prisons get their food from are the same companies the schools get their food from. How healthy do you think that that food is? I would probably wager that it's probably not very healthy. Now, there's probably been a lot of movement in this area for quite some time, and I've heard word that there's been that this food problem has been a point of concern for many parents, and I hope that I'm wrong about that one. But at a certain time in history, this was very much true, and this is just a risk, So if you can't go to if maybe there's different tiers on the menu, I have no idea, but you would be foolish to think that the food is completely healthy and that we can't question that. It's going to be good. Why would they put bad food in front of the kids? Well, why would they put good food? I mean, these places are already hurting for money, is that money that they're hurting for because of a food budget? I don't think so. Next is look at the buildings themselves. I mean, dull, gray buildings that don't inspire. The teachers are probably more inspirational than the buildings, but like the linoleum floors, the LED lights, the weird walls, and these buildings themselves are actually built by a lot of the same companies that build prisons. And when you think about it, and next time you drive past a school that might have gotten built in the last 20 years, for instance, take a look and just be like, and just in your mind's eye, just imagine that building with great big fences with barbed wire around the top, like great big fences around the perimeter of the property with barbed wire. Just imagine it as a jail or a prison instead of a school. It's really, you don't really have to do much work. Okay. You really don't, it doesn't take much imagination to get you there. And if you've ever seen a prison, or even on television, like a reality TV show, there's probably reality TV shows about prisons. You wouldn't have to do much work. It'd be a pretty easy exercise. And the last risk that I chose to address in this post was that your child is being taught to be dependent on the government. That's pretty self-explanatory. And I didn't look, I'm not a heartless person. I didn't just go through all this just to be like, oh, look at all the risks. I mean, I did address the benefits too. And I'll elaborate on this too. The benefits are social clubs. But those also exist outside the system. They exist outside the schools. And if more people like homeschooled, then there'd be more. So like that whole thing about, homeschooling, like, aren't you worried about socializing your kids? Like, first of all, no, like I want my kid to be an individual. Like I want my children to be individuals, not a part of some crowd, not a part of some hive mind, some Borg or whatever. But there's also other benefits too. Like, it's not just about social clubs. Like, yeah, there's good teachers. There's good people in there teaching, the different subjects like math and science and reading and writing and even some history. There's good people inside of those places that had this dream and they wanted to go and teach kids, and they're doing their best. So yeah, they get the lessons and everything like that, and that's a good thing too. So that's also a benefit. But I still think that the risks outweigh the benefits. I'm sure that, and so I go on here to say, I'm sure that some of you out there will have plenty to say about this, but maybe you keep it to yourself. Maybe you share your thoughts in the comments below. But just remember, and I mean this, like, I'm just asking kindly and respectfully, is that your argument be something of substance and not something based in reaction, like a reaction based in emotion. I understand that some of you feel an attachment to the system. I theorize this attachment to be held due to a subconscious denial of the gross injustice done to you by the government schools. That's okay with me. I'm not, look, and I know it definitely seems like I'm attacking people that send their kids to these places. I'm trying to get people to look at this, and it seems like an attack, but these things are true, and I'm not trying to attack anybody here. I really mean that, and I know it looks like I am, but I'm really not trying to attack you. I'm not trying to attack you or your parents. If you went to public school, I'm not trying to make your parents look bad. I'm not trying to make you look bad. We all have choices to make. It's a really difficult choice to make. And, I understand that some people do not have many choices in this respect. I get it. I completely understand. I grew up in a single parent household. My mom, I did have a stepdad, but that's just a stepdad. He was a great dude and I loved him very much. He's no longer with us. Rest in peace. But she didn't have a choice. And she's told me in my adult life that she always thought about homeschooling and that it would be cool. I didn't have a good time in school, and I'm not trying to project that onto other people. My only question is that, because somebody asked me one time, like, oh, you had a bad time in school. Like, how do you know that your kids are going to have a bad time? And the same can be said about the people who had a good time in the opposite fashion. You had a good time in school. How can you be so certain that your children will have a good time and not have a bad time? Okay. And look, I'm not talking out of my ass here. And I'm definitely Look, in the past, I said some pretty nasty things about the parents that send their kids to public school. I would like to issue a complete and utter apology, or maybe not utter, but a complete apology for those nasty things I said in the past. I was really angry at one point because of the whole the COVID calamity and all that stuff, and the parents that were continuing to send their kids to school in those conditions. It really just like didn't make sense to me. And so I'm not saying that you don't love your kids if you have no choice to send them to, and you have to send them to government school. I'm not saying you don't love your kids. I'm just trying to address a point that nobody talks about like this. Like nobody just lays it out like this and says, look at what you're, just look at what you're doing. Please, please, please consider this. They cannot protect your children. That's blatantly obvious. They cannot feed them properly. They cannot protect your children. They can barely teach your kids. Barely. You know how much extra work kids have to, like, of course the kids have to do the work themselves, but I mean, the quality of teacher these days is pretty poor. I'm speaking from, somebody who was in public school over 20 years ago. And, there's still good people that are trying to make a difference. I get that. But it's just, you have to, when you're about to make the decision of whether or not to send your children to government school or to keep them home, you need to assess the risks and whether or not you are comfortable with those risks. And maybe you have no choice. And I'm not going to talk in circles here, but you please just understand the risks, please. Now, if you think I'm talking out of my ass and you just want to have a complete emotional reaction to this, if you think that what I'm going over is extreme, oh boy, it's not. This is real. I'm being realistic with this. This is real life. This is real truth. This is how you have to be on the defense when so many things are out of your control when you choose to send your children to a government school. Now, where the hell now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it here. Nothing makes me more upset than hearing than getting an attempted ration of shit fed to me from somebody who doesn't understand one fucking thing about what I'm talking about. And they clearly just do what they're told because it's a prescribed belief. They think that this is just how it goes, and you got to send your kid to public school because that's what I did and I turned out fine. Did you turn out fine? If you did, great. If you think the system's working for you, it's not. And here's just a couple of books right here that, like, people that will argue against what I'm talking about with public school, they will argue against me until they're blue in the face, but they will never, ever even pick up one of these books, not a one, and read one page out of them to even see where I'm making my argument from, to make an actual educated argument against my points. They won't even do the, like, I've done the research to back up what they're going to say. I went to public school. I had to make these choices along with my wife. We had to team up and make these choices and really consider and weigh out the risks and benefits of all of this. We had to sit down and take it very seriously, whether or not to homeschool. And I had to read books, and I had to listen to, I listened to hours and hours and hours of interviews and podcasts about the risks and the benefits and blah, 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 blah. But, here's a couple, we'll switch to the book cam, I guess. Here's just a couple of things. I didn't assemble this stack. I didn't assemble this stack in any sort of coherent order at all, but we're just going to go, let's start with, what's in front here. All right. Have you ever read The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon? All right. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. This is a good one to start with. Would you read it? I don't know. This is what I think, has bolstered my claim of what's being taught to kids and how, and so this whole book thing that I'm doing, I'm bragging. I've read these And this is part of what's continued to help me continue making the decision to not send my kids to government school. I've read all of these, and I charge people that argue against the points that I'm making to start reading some fucking books and get educated about who these people are that formed the government schools, not the teachers that are working there, or maybe the principals or the institutions that made the government schools, the reasons why it exists the way that it does, the reasons, all of it. Just you don't even know. You don't even have. I have forgotten more than you know. Okay, you want to read Fabian Freeway. If you can even find a copy of this book that you want to read, Fabian Freeway by Roselle Martin and the Milner-Fabian Conspiracy. These books will help you understand the people who set up the institutions. The Open Conspiracy by H.G. Wells. That goes over it as well. Let's see, what else we got? Globalization in World History by edited by A.G. Hopkins. Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. The World Order by Eustace Mullins. The Anglo-American Establishment by Carol Quigley. The Continuing Battle for the Control of the Mind of Youth by Porter Sargent. All right, here we go. Is this going to fall over? Don't want to do that. The Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America by Charlotte Thompson Iserbyt. This is extremely important. She worked for the Department of Education in the Reagan administration, and she has some really, really good things to point out in that book. Education Free and Compulsory by Murray N. Rothbard. This is sort of a history, okay, along with, John Taylor Gatto. You can read any of John Taylor Gatto's books. I mean, let's just talk about John Taylor Gatto for a second. 2-time New York State Teacher of the Year. It's pretty damning when a guy of such high stature comes out in his acceptance speech and quits the job during his acceptance speech of being the New York State Teacher of the Year back in like 1991, 1992, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke, what we're going through tonight. And then you can kind of, go from there. I would read The Creature from Jekyll Island to kind of get a look into, kind of the system that they're setting up, because like the government schools are teaching you to be a tax slave. So you might as well know about who created the tax system, and who created the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. So, and then Compromised Campus, the collaboration of universities with the intelligence community between 1945 and 1955. This is like, whoa, that was a long time ago. This is by Sigmund Diamond. Oh, but that was a long time ago. Why should I read that? Well, it only existed for a short amount of time, 10 years, but this is all they needed in order to have lasting effects into the future that you and I exist in right now. Now, this isn't the only stack of books that anyone should be reading. There's plenty of other books out there by many, many people who have pointed this out. There's plenty of podcasts out there. There's plenty of documentaries out there. There's plenty of interviews out there. In my work over the last fucking 6 years almost, 6 years. I started podcasting almost 7 years ago, but over the last 6 years, I have tirelessly pointed out I have made it a part of my work to never shy away from pointing out what is going on in those places. And people don't pay attention to it. They just wake up, they want to go to work, they're a tax slave, like what I'm talking about in the reading tonight. Like all of the they just go along to get along, and then they turn around and they go, well, why can't I afford groceries? Why is the world on fire? It's like, well, you had your head down and you in the sand, and now you're getting, anyways. This isn't a joke. This is very serious stuff. And hey, you know what? I'll tell you, the place where I started was the Ultimate History Lesson with John Taylor Gatto, host, and that was honestly very eye-opening. And it teaches you about the history of public education and where it comes from, who brought it to America, how long ago it all got created. It's, whole intended purpose. And it's pretty obvious that, that the goal that they set out to accomplish has been continuously accomplished over the generations, and it will be continuously accomplished over the future generations if we don't start making a change now. So, maybe in the future we can do some more readings out of some of these books, maybe, who knows? Or maybe I'll just start making some content in this realm. So I hope everyone enjoyed that little rant there. And Everett Randolph in the chat. Let's see. See, look, if I go to this screen here, your chat comes up on the stream. Isn't that neat? Oh, look. Now I'm starting to mess with everything. All right. Anyways, Everett Randolph says also indoctrination. Yeah, indoctrination to what though? Right? I mean, if we're going to be honest, like, I know what you mean. All right. First of all, I know what you mean, but for the sake of other people, indoctrination to what? Indoctrination to the system of tax slavery, right? I know this is a topic that creates a lot of contention. I do not want people out there to think that it's an easy decision to make. It's not. But you can't just go making these types of decisions blindly. So in the future, if you're listening to this and you don't have children, then maybe in the future you do. And maybe you understand that, if you're really going to make it, like some of these books here, like if you're really going to make like an informed decision, we're talking about an informed decision of whether or not to homeschool or send your kid to government school, you gotta do better than just well, I went there and I'm okay. That's not good enough anymore. The drain that the world is going down. We're in a spiral. We're going down the drain, and you can no longer afford to let these people who have created so many problems. They've created war. They've created famine. They've created poverty. They've created destruction and evil, and they're teaching your children to accept it. We can no longer just go blindly into that. It's not an option anymore. It's not, because guess what? They are trying to set up a complete and utter control system, a global panopticon, and they don't need to. There's a saying that's been going around these days. The reason why the Fabian stuff is so important, like Fabian socialism, is so important to understand. And yes, Rose Martin does talk about the public education system and the people that are setting it up and the way that curriculums are kind of adjusted and created to The best example that I can give is this whole gun grab thing where like gun control laws are coming in and people are worried. All the Republicans are worried about they're going to come for my guns. They're going to come take my guns. It's like, actually, really what's going to be going on is they're not coming for your guns. They're going after your grandchildren's guns. They're not even going after the guns. They're going after the idea and the desire to own guns in the first place. So they can't go after the 60-year-old guy or, you know, the 40-year-old guy who's already got that mentality. They go after the culture. They go after the idea, the desire to own a firearm. That's what they go after. And they go after that by getting into the minds of the children and making it so they don't ever want to own guns in the first place. And so 2 or 3 generations from now, I mean, look at it from that point of view. 2 or 3 generations from now, the Second Amendment, if you even rely on that in the first place, first of all, it doesn't mean shit right now, but at least it's something on paper that people can hold on to and say, look, it says government can't take my guns. When in reality, owning weapons as a means of self-defense is an inherent right of natural law, and no one can actually take that right from you. They have to trick you into not understanding it in the first place. You see? So that's what they're going after. It's a Fabian tactic, and that's what they're doing to children. So in 2 or 3 generations, those children that exist in 60, 70 years from now, they have no interest in owning firearms. That's the whole reason why the whole school shooting narrative is blown up, and so much fear around that, which is justified. It is justified. No one wants to see that happen. But the sheer lack of proper response to that is kind of mind-boggling. It's like, okay, so you're afraid of this thing. Justifiably so. But why would you still send your children to that place where there's enough of these little people concentrated in an area where some sick fuck could go in there and massacre those people? That doesn't make sense to me. It's happened enough times. The narrative has been spun enough times to really sink into the public consciousness, and to make it, you know, pretty apparent that no one is really safe in those buildings. Like, that's the whole idea, right? But like, if you think about it critically for a second, like, why would you continue to send your kid there? The first option is to get them out of there. And if that means quitting your job and downsizing I mean, look at the power that you have. Like, you can quit your job. You could downsize. You could do many, many things. You know, and most parents, double income households, say your parents are together, like, maybe you cut back. I don't know. I don't know what's right for you in your life. All I'm saying is that, like, why is that never the option? Why is it, we got to get the guns, we got to surveil, we got to do all these other security measures, when the most secure measure that any parent could ever take is to just say, no, thank you, please. I'm not sending my kid to these buildings where no matter how many locks we put on the doors, no matter how many cameras we put in the corners of the building, no matter how many times we have a police station across town, or a police officer in the building itself, no matter how many times we take all of these precautions, there still seems to be these incidents keep happening, you know? And so, yeah, it just makes sense to me that you just don't put them there. If you don't want your kid to be wrapped up in one of those incidents, don't send them to the buildings where those incidents occur. It's not to say that the world is free of risk. I'm just saying that when you see it coming and happening time and time again, I mean, wouldn't it make sense to just not voluntarily walk into that? You know, because you are making a choice. You're making a choice by sending your kid there. You're in charge of that. And if you don't like the state laws where you live, then move someplace else. Oh, it's just that simple. It actually really is. Like, if you really put your mind to it, a lot can happen. Your mind is a very powerful thing. And you have untapped potential, latent abilities that, guess who? The schools took from you and made you think that you had to be dependent on the types of things that, they can provide. And they, I mean the government, in this case. Anyways, yeah. So that's the kind of Fabian tactic that's being used to kind of usher in this era of complete and utter slavery, global panopticon, and they do it by cozy. The New World Order is cozying up to your kids and saying, "Hey, we're friends," and it's like a vampire. They can only get in the house if you invite them in, and so they're doing the mind games and the young people to make it so it's just a part of life. And that way, when all of us old folks are dead and gone, there's no one left to tell about how things really were. You'd have to depend on that in a history book, written by a company, the distributors that are tied to people like Robert Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein and the Rothschilds in the first place. So you tell me who's crazy here, or if you tell me I'm crazy, I might say you've never done a lick of research on this subject in your life. Is it insulting? If you're offended by that, that's not my fault. Maybe that's some subconscious recognition of an inadequacy that you have in yourself, and that's not up to me to decide. It's not up to me to kind of make that go away. What my job here is to do is to point out truth and to try to get people to understand what's at risk. So I think that does it. We're almost at an hour and a half. And I'd like to just say thank you to everybody who tuned in. Drop a comment in the chat before we sign off. Maybe I'll read it. So thank you, Everett Randolph, for chiming in. You're very much right. I know the context in which your comment is made. And I would like to thank everyone else who tuned in tonight. Go over to voluntaryistacademy.com and check out the website. Sign up to the newsletter. In case the YouTube channel gets like demolished or nuked or whatever the kids are saying these days, if you are signed up to the newsletter, then should that ever happen, should you ever go to YouTube and be like, "Hey, whatever happened to that James Cordner guy who's always talking about voluntarism? I liked his channel. What the fuck?" Well, I have no plans to really stop, but YouTube might have plans for me at some point in time. So if you sign up to the newsletter by clicking this button, you get a PDF sent right to your email that you sign up with. You get a PDF of the Voluntaryist Creed by Auburn Herbert. Auburn Herbert is largely thought of as the guy who who coined the term voluntarist. And once I'm done with all the slides, because I have to be able to know how many slides there are for this presentation series of The End of All Evil. Once I'm done with all of them, there's going to be over 400 slides. Once I'm completely done with all of them, I'll be able to figure out a way to distribute them. And if I can, I will distribute them through the newsletter. So if you want the slides from the series, you can sign up to the newsletter and you'll get them sent to you. Then the only other way you'll ever be able to get the slides is if you meticulously go through and screenshot and crop them and do all this stuff, or you sign up to the newsletter and you can get them sent to your inbox. And you'll have them in all their glory. So if that doesn't sound right for you, like I said in the beginning, you can go to the contact page and just like write me a short little note. If you don't like commenting publicly on, say, the YouTube video or maybe the Facebook page, wherever you find this, if you don't like commenting publicly, you can send me a note to my inbox. You can also go to the support page and you can find a means in which is preferable to you to support this channel and to help it keep going and growing. You can go to the resources page and download PDFs that I cover from the various PDFs that I have covered on this channel and made videos of. Be right or go wrong. That's a pretty important one. And Men Against the State. That was a task. getting through that book. And you can become a sponsor. $3 a month is the lowest tier. That's only available to the first 30 people. A couple of people signed up. That's really nice. And forget about the VIP sponsorship thing. That's kind of lame. But for $5 a month, you get all the same things. $3 a month now until all the spots are gone, or $5 a month, and you can be a part of the Discord, where I'm trying to get like a community thing going where people can talk about solutions, and then you'll be I don't know. I'm thinking about if I can get enough people, start a call-in section where people can call into the show and talk to me directly on the air, ask some questions, do Q&As and stuff like that, and do like a private meeting every couple weeks where we can all just hang out. The community can hang out and get to know one another and see how everybody's doing in their different parts of the world. And I think that's going to do it for this week, guys. So just remember out there to keep your head on a swivel and and to always remember that you own yourself, period. That's it. You own yourself. No one else. You don't own anyone else. You own yourself. You got to be responsible for your own actions. You got to be responsible for your own thoughts and everything in between. So I love you all, and much love and peace. And let's go out there and show everybody what voluntarism is all about. Be a good influence on the world. Don't go out there and do harmful things. That's lame. Causing pain is stupid. Anyways, guys. Yeah. Oh, one last thing. Very last thing. Sorry. Brendan Daniel, thank you for the music, dude. You're the best. People want to check out the artist who created the song. He didn't create the song for the show, but he gave me permission to use it. He's awesome. He's a good dude. And he's a friend. So if you want to check him out, brendandanielmusic.com, I think is the link's in the show notes. Go check it out. And yeah, that's it. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you next week. Probably an interview. I have an interview scheduled with the guy who wrote The Fallacious Belief in Government. I probably should have put that on the list of books. So The Fallacious Belief of Government is on the stack. It should have been on the stack, but I didn't take it off the shelf. Jeffrey Hahn, he wrote the book, and I'm going to be interviewing him this week and probably airing that interview next Saturday. And then the last Saturday of March, I'll be completing the End of All Evil series. Peace.
No masters, no slaves, no rulers, no state, no taxes, no cage to see.